DIP is the dissertation in practice, and that is a hallmark of an EDD program now. EDD programs now are defined by the Carnegie Program for the Educational Doctorate. They're not the old school PhD program, or they're not what we had 20, 25 years ago. They used to call it PhD Light, which was soft science PhD programs where we spend all of this time in literature reviews looking for gaps in the literature and then trying to fill those gaps in through our own uniquely independent research that we were going to magically come up with in a dream one night as doctoral students. Well, the reality is that doesn't apply to what we do in public education. That doesn't apply to what we do in a lot of our social sciences. The dissertation in practice concept is we want to be able to prepare people to get terminal degrees who know how to solve problems. And we ask our students to come into the program identifying a problem of practice. What is something that's going on in their particular context that is problem? What is an issue of concern? And then we spend the next 3 years looking at that issue from 11 different perspectives. And then we spend time looking at a lot of different possible solutions to that issue. And we don't do that in a vein of independence. We do that as a cohort where our candidates come in with a group of other candidates and we investigate all of their issues at the same time with one another. We have a lot of voices in the room, and those voices help us learn better and see things through very, very different perspectives than we would see them alone. And we go through an iterative process with each of these problems. We ask, the 5 whys. Why is this a problem? Well, why? And try to get to the root causes of the problems of practice that we deal with. And then create scenarios and solutions that address those root causes. And often in the dissertation and practice, we find that those root causes force us to look from without for solutions. They force us to look for partners. And that partnership is a neat outcome of the dissertation and practice because it expands change from something that is within a single system, a closed system, to a solution that is an open system solution and brings more people to the table. And that more people to the table concept seriously enhances the impact we have as educational leaders or as organizational leaders. The other aspect of dissertation and practice is, in our program especially, we don't allow students to finish 9 semesters and still have a dissertation to go. Our dissertation and practice is built into every single course in the program. At the end of the first year, on paper, in front of a faculty committee, the expectation is our students will have an approved problem of practice. At the end of the second part of the program, we have an approved Chapter 2, an approved literature review related to that dissertation and practice. Now, that literature review is going to be visited a couple more times because we're going to spend an awful lot of time looking at literature about what our possible solutions are. And then after we try to implement some of the solutions, we're going to revisit Chapter 2 a third time and talk about how our solutions have been addressed or discussed previously in literature. The third part of the dissertation and practice is our methodology. What are we going to do about this problem? What's it going to look like? How many times are we going to try to fix this problem? How are we going to assess our fixes, both formatively and summatively? And we're going to repeat that process 2 or 3 different times. And we're going to report the results as our Chapter 4, and then talk about why anybody should ever care. What does it mean? What is the significance of going through this dissertation and practice, of going through this problem-solving series of steps for anyone else? And then how do we disseminate that? And part of this program, dissemination is very important. We have an obligation. We're not going to be writing research articles that nobody ever reads. We're going to be disseminating with practitioners and with boards and with community members, because we really think that the outcomes that our students will generate will have that much meaning.